All right, we should be live, and we'd like to welcome everybody back who, if you're listening live or listening at a later date, to episode 3 of the ORWBL podcast. And I am once again one of your hosts, Aidan Cotter, joining me with Brett Shepard once again. Yeah, definitely. Last week just wasn't really working out well, and with it being the off season and everything, it's not like we were missing too much breaking news, so we think we can get by with it. So this week, actually, no guest. We had Al on week 1, and we had Andrew Dorn on last week to talk about the GOATs. This week, no guest, kind of a last-minute thing. Just try to keep this short and sweet. But we do have some stuff to talk about. So first, we're just going to talk about a little bit. There's been some small moves in ORWBL the last couple weeks. Nothing too big, but there's been some little stuff that we're going to break down for everybody. And then we're going to preview this week's Team of the Week, which is the East Ridge Triple Crown, with Jeremy Ross as their supposed manager. And next, we'll move on to our weekly top 5. And this week, we're going to talk about our top 5 breakout players for 2018. And then finally, we're pretty excited about this. With it being March Madness season and everything, we're going to have a little bit of ORWBL bracketology. So kind of like a slash and sew, getting you ready for next week, but this is just wiffle ball. So that should be pretty fun towards the end of the show. But first off, just some ORWBL news. Not too much has been going on. It's kind of the slow point. We're about, 2 months from opening day? Just about then. Just some little stuff that has been going on. Al Freeman, manager of the Maple City Magic, named Wes Ellis as opening day starter. Brett, I don't think that was not a surprise at all. Yep, reigning Cy Young, so he'll look to get things going opening day. The Billy Goats, about a week after we brought Andrew on the show, he actually made 2 more signings. I don't know if you saw that, Brett. I don't actually have their names. I didn't recognize them. I'm not sure. I know I saw one of them played Penn baseball, I believe. I believe Chase McKenzie and Justin. Oh God, I don't even know the last name for that one. Yep. Yeah, definitely. It's good to see Dorn's getting more guys out on the. Hold on one second. All right, I think we have some technical difficulty. Let me see if I can get this. I think it should be fixed now.
All right. So.
All right. Well, not really talking about much. Just to recap, Wes Ellis named opening day starter for the Maple City Magic, and Andrew Dorn signing 2 former baseball players,
Chase McKenzie and Justin Fox, for the East Ranger Billy Goats, which could be potentially decent pickups. Never seen him play wiffle ball, but I know McKenzie's played baseball and he's pretty good at it. So
should be definitely. Okay, I guess we still have some problems. All right, we're actually going to stop the stream for a second and try to resolve this and hopefully be back on in a second. All right, we should be back. Hopefully, we got everything taken care of. Supposedly, it is all working now. Everyone should be able to hear me, myself, and Brett. But just going back down the line, we were talking before a little bit about recent news. We talked Wes Ellis named opening day starter, Andrew Dorn signing 2 more players, and also before we get too far into things, I would like to say, give out my condolences and talk about Cody Stroud. Today would have been his 21st birthday. Everyone a lot of people around the league know Cody, especially guys involved with Hudson Lake, Lynch Street, and the Land Sharks. And Cody tragically passed away a few months ago in a car, and we just like to take a moment to remember Cody and just pay our respects. Rest in peace, Cody.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on, some other little stuff. The Bruce Hill Wildcards, who have been pretty quiet historically on the off seasons, Raylanders team, signed Alan Ament, who last played in 2013. I don't know if you're very familiar with him, Brett.
No idea.
Alan played on some of those really early South Bend teams with Matt Surge, and his last full season on ORWBL, his stats in 2013, he hit 481 with 23 homers and only 100 plate appearances, which is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, that's solid.
And especially losing Chad Swain to the Land Sharks, that would be big if he can play some. If he can play some games for him, that would be really big for him.
Mm-hmm. It'd be big if he comes back and continues to pick up right where he left off. Obviously, taking out, would you say, 4 or 5 years off from the game?
Yeah.
Could take a little bit to getting used to get the cobwebs off. But if he plays like how the stats showed when he used to, then could be pretty decent.
Yeah, I believe he played in one series last year. I might be mistaken, but I believe he played in one series last year. I think he played pretty well, but obviously it's been a couple years, so we'll have to see. But moving on, we are now going to preview this week's Team of the Week, Triple Crown. I believe they were the last rated or second to last rated team in the power rankings for the offseason. And for anyone unfamiliar, Triple Crown is ran by Jeremy Ross, former Great Lake Godfather and Granger Panther. And we have some thoughts about Triple Crown.
Yeah, don't really know a whole lot about these guys in the roster. I mean, I know Michael Forrester. Obviously, I know Jeremy Ross, but other than that, any of the Smith guys, I don't know. Looking at it, so and it's a pretty thin roster, honestly. Only 7 guys right now. So I think for Triple Crown, it's going to be tough to put a team out there at this point, is what it looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know Jeremy tried to bring a team in last year and was basically confirmed, and I couldn't get the guys, so he ended up having to drop out. This year, he does have supposedly the guys, but I don't know. I'm skeptical. I've talked to Al about my skepticism with this team. I'm worried with the track record with last year, and just knowing Jeremy personally, I'm just nothing against him. I'm just worried that he's not going to be able to get 5 guys out there every week.
Yeah, and it could be another Bertrand situation potentially if that can't happen, and that's obviously for the good of the league. That's not what we want.
No, not at all. We don't want another Bomber situation where they drop out mid-season. I'm sure we could find guys to take their place last second, but that's not really what we want to do. That's not a good look for the league at all.
Exactly.
But I don't know. Assuming they are playing every week, though. I mean, we don't want to assume the worst. Assuming they are playing the week, Jeremy, they bring with them, so I'm assuming Jeremy would be in their top 5. And Jeremy, I mean, he had a solid rookie season. He won the Central Rookie of the Year for the NWLA awards.
NWL, NWL.
Which was interesting. I know I talked to you a little bit about this a while ago, and Al too, which was interesting because technically everyone on Granger was a rookie last year.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not sure if that was a website issue or if Jeremy was really just not impressive.
The list goes on how they didn't got it, but
but regardless,
he didn't have a terrible season, not at all. 35 home runs, hit 410, 28 games.
Yeah, I spent a little over half the season with the Godfathers and then played with you guys for the playoffs. And I know he had a pretty. What was it against Emory's that he had a pretty big game?
Emory's was a good series for him. Yeah, he played pretty well that game. He definitely was probably our best player that day. Not a lot of guys were hitting, and he was. So that definitely helped for us that day.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of experience. He's played in just about every single tournament the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Really wants to be involved in the league and has a lot of energy. So, I mean, he's definitely going to bring that with him.
He's definitely got the drive, yeah. He definitely wants to be there. He wants to show up. He's the kind of guy that's going to play, full 24 games for his team. So that's always good to have a guy like that. But then, like we said, it's just tough to get those guys.
Yeah, it's really just a team of unknowns. He
Mm-hmm.
brings with him, according to an article on ORWBL and according to their website, he brings with them Michael Forster and Bryce Blood, who are both seniors at New Prairie High School and both have played with myself the last couple of years in various tournaments. Bryce is actually a really good baseball player. He's going to be playing at Trine University next year, and a really solid athlete. And Michael is a big left-handed pitcher who's been pretty solid. I mean, both of them are very, very inexperienced in wiffle ball, but young players who have a lot of energy for the game. So that definitely, potentially could work out in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm unfamiliar with the three Smith brothers. I don't know.
I'm in the same boat there. I don't know who any of them are.
I think they last played in
John
2000.
Ross is Jeremy's dad.
Yeah, and then Jeremy's dad as well, who I have had the privilege to see play once or twice, which is
Yeah, you think he played in the
interesting.
NBA a couple years ago.
Yeah. So
That's how I've ever seen him play.
we'll see what goes on with Triple Crown. I don't have super high expectations for that team. Like I said, for me, a good season for them would be going to every series. Like, honestly, I think that's about the most I'm looking for with that team. I don't see them really contending, especially when you look at the AL and NL. AL seems to have definitely more established teams. I mean, AL's got the Muffs, Maple City, Cabo, Hudson Lake.
Yeah.
Like those four right there. I don't see Triple Crown really competing.
Even
with
the Godfathers are even keeping throw.
Yeah, and the Godfathers are on their way up.
Better and better.
And if the wild cards can put stuff together, like
So it's going to be definitely an uphill battle for East Ridge.
Yeah, I don't see, and I don't know what East Ridge is either. I hate to I don't want to bash on them too much, but like I don't know what that is. I'll be interested to see where that home field is.
It'll be interesting for sure how Triple Crown season plays out.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just have to see. We won't know until the season starts, but that's that. And then moving on, this week for our top 5, we're going to talk about our top 5 breakout players. So we're specifically in this looking at younger players who haven't really had a big season yet, or if they have been inconsistent. So you're not going to see a lot of guys from like Newts or Emery's or Maple City or Cabo, any of those experienced teams. We're really looking for the younger guys that we think are going to like really put their game to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
So we can just trade off going. So at my number 5 spot, I have Nick Brassel, manager of Lynn Street, who's played, technically this will be his 3rd year, but really that first year was just kind of, they only played half a season. Yeah. So he's really not even through his 2nd season yet if you look at it. Last year hit around 430, had 20 home runs, played in just about every game, and was, I would say, their most consistent player, like by far, was their most consistent hitter. And I believe he was pitching towards the end of the year. Did not pitch against us, but from what I've heard, they started having a lot more success once he started pitching. The defense started picking up. So we'll see. We'll see if he continues to pitch with Mookie going back to Lynn Street, but that'll definitely be interesting, to say the least. I think he's going to in for a very big season, turn that Lynn Street team around. What about you, Brett? Who do you have for your number 5?
At number 5, I have from the new Saugony Lake Land Sharks, manager Levi Miller. Last year, this will be Levi's 3rd season in the league, I believe, and last year he hit 433 and had 16 home runs, but he only played 10 games. But I think Levi being the managerial position this year might put a little more of a leadership role on him. Maybe he'll be playing better, kind of have to get his guys going. So I think Levi Miller, look out for Levi Miller in 2018. He could be having a breakout year.
Yeah, definitely. I touched about this in an article I wrote for ORWBL last year, previewing the AL playoffs. But really, Hudson Lake last year, who Levi played for, really struggled for the first half of the season. I believe they lost 3 straight series.
Yeah.
But as soon as they had Levi playing more consistently, they really started clicking. And especially when they brought Levi as one of their 5 guys down to Skokie, they had a really good Skokie showing. So, I mean, Levi, he's a former All-Star with White Lightning.
He's one of the fastest guys in ORWBL, too. He is
absolutely
very fast. When he hits it on the ground, you got to get it to the pitcher real quick because he gets on that line fast.
Definitely is. So I agree, he definitely is in for a big season. My number 4, kind of an unknown for some guys, but Cody Carlisle from the Bristol Hill Wildcards. Cody last year was his first year in ORWBL, and he quietly had a really, really good campaign. In 27 games, he hit 570 with 20 home runs, which any player can do over 500 in ORWBL. I mean, that's a sign of a pretty good hitter.
Yeah.
And Cody is very loud. I will say that. He's a very loud, athletic outfielder. Really, I think a good dude. He had a fun series against us. Just a good athlete, and I think with another year of experience behind him, I think he's in for another big season, and hopefully she turns some heads and get some more recognition.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, it's quiet season. I noticed it last year filling out my All-Star ballot. I think I ended up putting Cody Carlisle on my All-Star ballot as a reserve last year because his stats were so good. And we'd had a series where we played him at the Palace. And like you said, a loud guy, but really nice guy and a pretty decent wiffle ball player.
Absolutely. Definitely should be in for a big season. All right, Brett, number 4 for you.
Number 4, not to be a homer or anything, but it's going to go to Granger Panthers' Austin Williams. One of the best defensive players in the league, if not the best, in my opinion. He plays center for us. He always good in the outfield. A lot of guys know him for that, but he's got a lot of power. He hit 34 home runs last year in just 24 games. So we're looking for a big year out of him. He also hit 438. So, sometimes he might be in Griffin or Seth's shadow, but Austin Williams, look out for him this year.
Yeah, Austin has always been a guy I've been kind of puzzled with, just watching him play outfield. Because when you think of like some of the best outfielders in the league, guys like Seth from you guys, the Webb brothers, Zach Liberatore, Noah Shale. When you look at some of the better outfielders, those guys are pretty like small, not like short, but like just like skinny. And Austin is like kind of a bigger guy.
Yeah, but he moves like a ninja in the outfield. It's crazy.
Kind of. I mean, we were talking about that. We were very surprised, like how good of a fielder he is for his size. So yeah. I could 100% see that. Coming at my number 3 spot, I have another Land Shark. I have Mikey Smith from the Land Sharks coming over from the Heat, his first year. Technically, this will be his 5th year in ORWBL, but it doesn't feel like he's played 5 years in ORWBL. He has played sparingly with the Hudson Lake Heat, just kind of series here and there. Last year, did end up playing 21 games. Hit around 350, but had 21 home runs. But I really feel like this year, being a focal point in that Land Shark lineup is going to be big for him. Because I'm just playing with Mikey. He has some days where he can really just hit the crap out of the ball. Mikey's another one of those big dudes who's got a big stick. And I think with consistent playing time and being higher up in that lineup for the Land Sharks, he's definitely a guy to look out for as a breakout star.
Yeah, I would agree. I think last show we talked a little bit about Mikey Smith and that whole article with him leaving the Heat and whatnot. He's gonna be. He's like we said. He's showing potential. If he can put it all together in one season, he can definitely have a heck of a year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for my number 3, I have one you already mentioned. It's Nick Brassel from Lynn Street. I think, like you touched on, Nick Brassel. I think he's their best player in Lynn Street, most consistent guy. He's a leader for that team, and I look for him to only get better with more and more experience in wiffle ball.
Yeah, we touched on him earlier. I think both of us agree Nick is in for a good season. Just a good athlete, and the more time he spends around wiffle ball, I think the better he's just going to be.
Yeah, for sure.
And then coming in at my number 2 spot, I'm going to butcher his last name. Tiki, oh God.
Derzinski,
Granger's catcher. Another kind of, I would say, a pretty loud guy, but not in the same way as when we talk about Cody. Definitely,
he's just the kind of guy that'll talk to you when after bat and he's catching. Just say
absolutely is. I would say one of the more competitive guys. Just watching him play in a couple tournaments and playing against him a couple times. But there's an instance where I really saw him playing, and I really thought to myself, "Holy crap! Like this dude has a chance to be one of the best players in the league." And it happened last year at Skokie. I believe you guys were playing Club Ripped. It was right before you guys played the Newts.
See, we didn't play, it was Funky Plastic.
Funky Plastic was. You guys were playing Funky Plastic, and I swear to God, Tiki hit like 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, Tiki's got like crazy power.
I just looked at Kobe and was like, "Holy shit! Like this kid can hit." And that was the time. And catcher is a position in the league where like it's not really known for their hitting. There aren't a ton of like great hitting catchers in the league, and he brings that hitting as well as some pretty good defense behind the plate. So I can definitely see him having a huge breakout year for Granger this year.
Yeah,
behind the plate.
Yeah, with coming up with the Panthers these past few years, we've always talked, like me and Griffin always said, Griffin's always said Tiki's the best here on this team. He said that before. I mean, I don't know if he still thinks that after Griffin played well last year, but Tiki's got the most potential, I think, of anybody in this Granger Panther roster.
Yeah, and that's scary for the rest of the league. I mean, the fact that he was an all-star starter last year, and we're talking about him being a breakout candidate.
Yeah, that just shows how high his ceiling is.
I think that's scary for the league. What about you, bro? Who you have for number 2?
My number 2, going to stay in the same city, going to East Granger, though, with Lucas Oletti. Last year, he played with the Panthers, only played 9 games, but he did hit .509, and he's actually pretty good in the outfield as well. This will be his second season in the league. He was a rookie last year, only hit 6 home runs, but like I said, he only played 9 games. So he's got a good bat. He can hit for average really well. I've seen him play many a times, and I like what he brings to the table.
Yeah, definitely. We touched on him last week a lot with Andrew, so I think absolutely. I haven't seen him play a ton, but from everything I've heard from you guys, could definitely be a Rookie of the Year candidate for sure. Mm-hmm. And then my number 1 spot, I do hate to be a homer, but it is what it is. I have my friend and teammate Garrett Reese from the South Bend Muffs, and I know Tony tweets about this all the time. Garrett has some legit MVP potential, and that's not just my own opinion. That's coming from guys who play with him over at Jet City. I know Drew Luther has a high opinion of him. I know Nate Arndt has a high opinion of him. Just his ceiling it's through the roof. I mean, he's an incredible athlete. Was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and last year was really his first year playing wiffle ball a lot, and he still only played 15 games in the regular season. But I think he had a really signature moment. I know his series against Hudson Lake, talking to Jared and Doug Benner about that series. They said literally, like, you could not get him out. I think he hit like 13 or 14 home runs that day. And then watching him play at the HD Classic last year when Jet City lost to
Son of a Pitch
in the championship with that team. Really just a solid fielder. And if he can learn, my biggest thing with him is if he can learn to hit to all fields and not just be a pull hitter, he could be in for a huge season this year.
Yeah, I've seen Garrett play a few times last year. I remember last year we were at Old Rock Field playing some pickup or something. It was towards the beginning of the season. Like you said, how they kind of picked him up like halfway through. Mm-hmm. I remember Garrett was there just playing. It was before they had signed him, and Nate was like looking for a guy or something. I think it was it Nate that hurt his ankle last year? Yeah. He's like another guy or something, and then Garrett was playing. I remember he just hit a home run. And I was like, "Is he on a team? You should sign him." And he's just like, "All right," and he signed him, and he ended up playing really well for him all year. Like you said, played in the HD Classic. They almost ended up winning that whole tournament. But like you said, he's got a lot of potential, not only offensively but defensively as well. He's a really lengthy guy out there in the outfield, and that helps a ton. And like you said, great athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely have high hopes for him. Mm-hmm. What about you, Brett? Who do you have at number 1?
Number 1, another new Muff, Connor Van Oberg. Last year, he hit .445 in 22 games, and he also hit 21 home runs. Also, I believe won the Golden Glove.
Yep.
Yeah, won the Golden Glove, and that says a lot of great defenders out there in the AL last year. So, like you said, 2 Muffs right there at our number 1s. So that could be big for the Muffs if they both have breakout years as we're expecting them to do so.
Yeah, definitely. I think just playing with Connor over the last couple of years, he's always been a really good fielder. I've known that. His biggest thing is just like consistently hitting for power. I think when the wind is blowing in, he can struggle a little bit. At least he has in the past. So we'll definitely have to see if he can learn to hit for power, even when the wind isn't blowing out as much as he'd want it to be. But I agree, like definitely a really solid fielder. And if he can get his hitting around, it could be in for a big year.
For sure.
All right. So that just about wraps up our top 5. So finally, we have a segment that I'm actually really excited for. I was thinking about this earlier today, and with March Madness coming up for college basketball, I figured we have to do something with that with ORWBL. So we're going to call this ORWBL March Madness. And the way this is going to work is I have an empty 16-team, what would be a regional in the NCAA tournament, bracket in front of me, completely empty. And Brett and I are going to pick this. We are going to seed this team like they do on Selection Sunday. And because we only have 14 teams in the league, the 1 and 2 seeds will both get buys. And the way this is going to work is Brett is going to pick the Brett will pick the odd seeds and I will pick the even seeds, and then we'll go through the matchups and we'll talk about it. And we're going to treat this as if every team is playing a one-game playoff, just like they would be in the tournament. And then we're going to go through and see who we think would win. So,
right.
Brett, who would you put out of any team in the league as your number 1 overall seed?
Number 1, I would have to say Maple City Magic, just a stacked roster, defending champions. I think you almost have to put them at number 1 at that point.
Yep, I completely agree. I don't think there's any debate about that one. Number 2, I'm going to, instead of picking the defending NL champs, I'm actually going to go with Granger. I think in this situation, after winning the regular season crown last year, I think they would be your ideal number 2 seed for our kind of bracketology.
All right. Number 3, any of these 3 teams, I guess, could be interchangeable, or really more teams now. The league's just getting better and better. Number 3, the New Carlisle Newts. Historically one of the best teams in the league, 3-time ORWBL champions. Not much more to say. Everyone knows who the Newts are. They're great.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think those top 3 teams are pretty solidified. After that, I think it does get kind of murky. You really just don't know who's going to come up next. But my number 4 spot, I'm going to have a team that I know is a big fan of the podcast from their tweets. I have Cabo as my number 4. I know they don't, I don't know, I don't think they like listening to the podcast if we don't talk about them enough, but this is a little bit of recognition. I have them as their number 4 seed.
All right. The 4, I could see that. Cabo, yeah, great team. Lot of good players in that team, really. And if they all put it together and they all showed up on time, I really think that they could be one of the best teams in the league. So 4 is definitely, like you said, it's kind of murky between 4 and 10-ish.
Yep.
I think 4 is good for Cabo. I think they're a pretty solid team, actually.
Yeah.
Number 5, I'm probably gonna have to go with the South Bend Muffs, just because of all the signings. They got the Reef brothers back on the team now. They got yourself, like we just mentioned, Connor Van Oberg and Garrett Ruiz. So there's a lot of good things going on in South Bend. So I think the Muffs will be my number 5 seed there.
Yeah, I cannot argue against that one, against my own team. Number 6, which kind of just, I don't feel like they should be higher, but at the same time, I feel like it's a little low. Number 6, I have to put in the Hudson Lake Heat.
Yeah.
Last year took Maple City to the wire in the ALCS or DS, and I think the top 6 teams, there's definitely some tiers in ORWBL, and like you said, the league, the talent is spreading further and further, which is really good for the league. I don't think you can definitively say there's a super team anymore, which is really good for the league. But coming in probably maybe a little too low, number 6, the Hudson Lake Heat.
Now it gets kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of I don't know who to pick. But at number 7, I'm going to go ahead and say the Great Lakes Godfathers.
Wow.
This team gets better and better every year, and they're coming into their 3rd season.
Yep.
And Matador Smith's improving with every game. Mark Haas is obviously great, and you never know. There could be another breakout guy on that team this year. I think they're the number 7 team in the league.
All right, have them at number 7. Coming at number 8, I have to pick Emery's Army. I think getting Emmons back this year is going to be huge for them. They had a tough start to last year, but really started to pick it up towards the end of the year. They have history of tournament success, and I think looking at the teams that are left, they have by far the most experience. I think that really does play a big role.
Yeah, it definitely does. Experience is key in wiffle ball. It's hard. If you ever go out there your first time, you're not going to be very successful. And with Emmons coming back, like you said, that's big league. So for number 9, I'm going to go ahead and say the East Granger Billy Goats. Probably a little lower than they would like to expect, but the talent in the league is too high, and they're going to be a decent team, but number 9, I think, is a good spot for them right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this range is really big toss-up. Really just depends how guys play throughout the regular season. Number 10, I'm going to have to go with the Saugeen Lake Land Sharks, who I know are not going to be happy about this, but kind of, in my opinion, a team that had kind of got disrespected in the power rankings, at least in my opinion. I think they were 11. I only have them at 10, but at the same time, they have some experienced players in the team. Cody Webb, Mikey Smith, Levi Miller. 11 or 10 just feels a little low for them, just kind of like Hudson Lake, but at the same time, like
Same time, it's like who you're going to put ahead.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. But another team, like if things click this year, who knows?
yeah, for sure. All right, at number 11, I'm going to go with the Lynn Street Leprechauns. Like we touched on Nick Brassel and then having Mookie coming back. They also had some other good signings, and I think they're getting better and better. They're not the worst team in the league like they once were.
Absolutely not.
So I'm going to put Lynn Street at 11.
I definitely agree with that. Number 12, we only got 3 teams left. I'm going to have to go with the wild cards. Haven't had a lot of success in recent years. Just lost Chad Swain to the Land Sharks, but getting Alan Ament, and if Cody Carlisle could take another step up and Raylander can start to hit like he used to, I think this is definitely a team that could surprise some folks this year.
Yeah, they definitely have guys that can play. Just kind of if they show up ready to play. We talked about you talked about Raylander and how he used to be able to hit really well, and if he can bring that back like he used to, that could be big for them. At number 13, I'm going to go ahead and say Eastridge Triple Crown, only because of I don't really know anybody on the Silver Sluggers,
Right.
and Jeremy Ross is a decent player. So I'm going to go ahead and just put Triple Crown there at 13.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think these 13 and 14 these 13, 14, they're pretty interchangeable at this point. But like we said, we don't know a lot about South Shore Silver Sluggers. Don't know a lot about them. But for right now, I don't know how we can put them higher than anybody else. Maybe higher than Triple Crown, but those two I think are a big toss-up. So moving on, what we're going to do now is we're going to just kind of pick through the bracket and talk about what the individual games would be like if this is how we would seed them. So first overall seed would be the Magic playing. They would get a bye since we only have 14 teams, and in this scenario, the 1 and 2 seeds both get byes. But the 8-9 game, number 8 would be Emery's Army, number 9 would be the Billy Goats. What do you think about this one, Brett?
I think it'd be an interesting matchup. Honestly, 8-9. That's pretty close in the rank in the seeding. So I think it'd be a close game. I would have to give the edge probably Emery's Army just by hair, just based on experience. Really, they played well against. We played them first round in the DS in the playoffs last year. And they played us tough. They gave us all they had. So yeah. Definitely Emery's.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that. But the interesting thing, so like in our scenario, this is just a 1-game playoff. It's not like the playoffs where you play 3 games or 5 or 7.
So
in one game, anything can happen, honestly. But yeah. I do agree. I think that experience in a tournament situation like this, with EA having tournament success in the past, I would have to give the edge to EA.
Mm-hmm.
Moving down, we have our 5-12 matchup, which is always a trendy pick for upsets in March Madness. So at our 5 seed, we have the South Bend Muffs, and our 12 seed, we have the Barista Hill Wildcards. Unfortunately, not trying to be biased at all, but I don't see a 12-5 upset right here. I think the Muffs would take care of the Wildcards pretty easily. I don't know, Brett, if you have any different opinions.
I have to agree. Usually I like to pick a couple 12-5s in my bracket, but this time I'm going to have to go to the 5 seed Muffs. I think just talent, they're just a better team.
Yep, I'd have to agree with that. Moving on down, the 4-13, we have 4 being Cabo Yabos and 13 being Triple Crown. I don't think this would be much of a game, honestly. I hate to not be picking upsets. I'm a big upset guy come March Madness, which is probably why I always do bad, but I don't see a situation where Cabo would lose that Triple Crown team.
No, yeah, I'd have to agree. Cabo's I don't see Triple Crown beating Cabo. They're just a better team. Cabo, better team than Triple Crown. Pretty much certain scenarios as talent takes over.
Absolutely. Especially having tournament success with Granite's quote winning a couple tournaments in the last couple of years. I think that would be a pretty easy one to pick. For our 6 and 11 matchup, we have the Hudson Lake Heat versus the Lynn Street Leprechauns. This one, I think, would be a closer series than people would think, especially the way the Lynn Street has played the last couple of years. But I think the Heat are going to be really, really damn good this year. I think they really haven't figured out if Webb can play a lot of series for them in left field to complement their 4 from last year. I really think that's a scary team, especially in a tournament situation like this. If those guys can get hot, they can hit with just about anybody. And Lynn Street, we talked about Nick earlier, but I just don't think they have enough firepower in a 1-game playoff like this.
Yeah, I think it could be an interesting game if it was a 1-game playoff. I think it could be closer than people would expect. I would definitely say Lynn Street would give them give them more than they could handle, but I mean, not more than they can handle, all they could handle, but I think the Heat would hold on and win in a 4-5 run game.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. Next we have the News versus the 14 seed, the South Shore Silver Sluggers. Kind of the same thing as Cabo and Triple Crown, in my opinion. I don't know, Brett. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much. It just better team's going to win in a situation like that when it's that much big of a difference.
Yeah, I just don't see. I can't see Suze and Curlis dropping a game like that to an experienced team like that. Moving on down to our last game in round one, we have the 7 seed Godfathers to the 10 seed the Land Sharks. Brett, what do you think about this one?
I think this would be a very interesting game. I think it'd be probably the best game we've talked about so far.
I agree.
I'd have to say Land Sharks, just because I think they have more like potential. If they play their best and Godfathers play their best, I think Land Sharks would win.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the Godfathers are probably the more consistent team. But in a situation like this, I definitely would be going for an upset pick right here with the Land Sharks.
Yeah.
All right, going to the top of our bracket now. We have the number 1 overall seed, Maple City Magic, taking on number 8 overall seed, Emery's Army. Brett, what do you think?
I think it could be a good game to an extent, but I think Maple City is just too much for Emery's. They're just too athletic. Just John Cummins, Wes Ellis, just signed, Luther and Shane Anderson are back. So I think it's just too much for Emery's to handle.
Yeah, I think it would be one of those games that would be a real classic. I think it would be a fun game, especially if Emmons and Jake Lawrence could get it going. But at the same time, I do agree. I think Maple City just has too much right now. Moving on down, our 5-4 matchup, we have the Muffs and Cabo, and this is one of those that I really think is a big toss-up. I think, especially in a tournament situation like this, I mean, we've seen what Granny's Quilt can do in a tournament situation, and the Muffs, for as good as we think, at least I think that we are gonna be this year, I don't think the Muffs have ever won a tournament. I think in a situation like this, where in our hypothetical tournament, I think some experience does come into play. I don't know.
Yeah, like you said, it's pretty evenly matched, honestly. Yeah, it's a tough one. Like you said, the experience. I kind of want to say Cabo, but at the same time, it's like, why wouldn't I pick the Muffs? Just because of who the Muffs just signed. But I would say Cabo by a hair.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a toss up.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of these games with how competitive
and it's only
the league is getting, these games are all going to be really competitive, and I think that'll be another one. But we'll have Cabo moving on right there. Next, another game that's I think would be a really fun one to watch in a tournament situation: Hudson Lake Heat versus New Carlisle Newts.
Ooh.
I think the Heat are the one team on here where I think
they could beat anybody in the league.
I think so too, and I think there's not a ton of teams in the league that can say that. The thing with the Heat is I feel like on any given day, the Heat can beat anybody in the league, but I feel like the Heat can also lose anybody in the league.
Yeah, they're definitely inconsistent, but they also have the most potential.
A lot of star power.
Yeah, Monhute, Bushman, McDonald. That's a 3-headed monster right there in itself. Yeah. I would say Heat.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to
the conditions at the same time too. Wind blowing in, wind blowing out. Where's it at? I mean, there's a lot of variables here, but I don't know. I don't want to. No, never mind. I don't want to say that, but I think Heat. I would say Heat in the upside.
I'm gonna, for the sake of this, we're gonna assume that Jay Ryans is not pitching for the Newts. He didn't pitch for them in the World Series, and I think if Jay's not pitching, I think that team is more vulnerable than people think. And I like that as a trendy upset pick. I'm sure I'm gonna get a strongly worded text from Kobe after the podcast, but that's all right. We'll have the Heat moving on. And then our 7-2 game, we have the Sharks versus Granger. This one I think would be an interesting game. I think the Sharks are a lot like the Heat, the fact where they can get hot and play with just about anybody. But at the same time, I don't think they have the same star power the Heat do compared to Granger.
Yeah, I would agree. They're similar in the Heat, but they're not as good, I would say. I would say Granger, but
yeah, I think it would be a good game.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like a blowout by any means. It would definitely be a tight game all through 6 innings.
Absolutely. So moving on to our final four, we have the Magic and Cabo, and I think in a situation like this would be a game for the ages, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. If this was at a tournament, it'd be one I'd want to go watch if Granger still wasn't playing.
Absolutely. I mean, Cabo's one of those teams where we talked about earlier, like when they get in a tournament situation, they have a tendency just to turn it into the next year. And depending on who they have playing for them at a specific time, I could definitely see them giving the Magic a run for their money. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I think this game would be more than any other be a game where I think the win would have a big impact. I think if the wind's blown out, I think Cabo can really just start to pile runs on you like crazy.
Yeah.
This one, another one of those, I think that's a toss-up. I think if the wind is kind of blowing in, I would have to take the Magic, and I think that's who I'm going to end up taking. I don't know. What do you think, Brett?
I would say Magic too, but I think if these teams played like 5 times, Magic would win 3, Cabo would win 2. I think it'd be a really good game, like you mentioned, just an instant classic. And it just depends on variables and stuff. But I would give Magic the slight edge.
Yep, I'd have to agree with that. And then our other Final Four game, we have the Hudson Lake Heat and the Granger Panthers. And these teams, I don't know if you guys see it, but I see a lot of similarities between these two teams. A lot of guys, younger guys who have some star power and can really hit the crap out of the ball. I think that's very similar to like a Magic Cabo game would be one to watch.
Yeah, it would definitely be a good game last year in ORWBL. It's actually the only series we lost all year. Heat took 2 out of 3 at home.
I remember hearing about that, and that was really when Hudson Lake started turning around.
Yeah, that's when they started getting it going towards the end of the season. But I mean, I don't want to pick in this one. You can go ahead and pick for the bracket's sake, whatever you think.
I think if the Heat are coming, if we're gonna assume the Heat are upsetting the Newts, I think that means they're red hot, and I think this would be a situation where the Heat would pull off the upset. If they already upset the Newts.
It's definitely possible. It would definitely be a good game. I mean, I know if we get put against the Heat in the bracket, it's never a good time.
Oh yeah,
and like playing them ever.
Like we said, all these once you get in like the Final Four, like a lot of these are just big toss-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And I think wiffle ball more than anything else is really a game conditions and just getting hot at the right
goes
time.
Up, who's there?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so for our championship, we actually have a rematch from last year's AL playoffs. We have the Maple City Magic and the Hudson Lake Heat. Brett, if you want to give anything to say about this one?
I mean, last year, like you said, in the playoffs, Heat had them on the ropes. Magic pulled it out. Heat did win game 1, so hypothetically, game 1, they'd take that. But I don't know. I don't see in a 1-game championship like this against the Heat. I would take the Magic just because they've won the championships before, or the championship last year, and they know how to win. They had a huge year last year. I would take the Magic, but it'd be a great game.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think the fact that they had him on the ropes last year, and then adding a guy like Jason Webb who can really lock down that left field and can get on base and hit a little bit, I think it would be a really, really good game and definitely one to watch. Since we're already having the Heat make a Cinderella run, upsetting the 3 and 2 seeds, for the sake of March Madness, I would have to go with the Heat, but it would definitely, like a lot of these games, would really be a toss-up in a 1-game scenario.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be a great game, like you just said. A lot of these games, once you get to like the top, like we said, 6 or so of the league, any team's almost interchangeable at that point. So there's just like we said, the talent's just getting deeper and deeper in the league, and it's ultimately better for the league itself.
Absolutely. Well, that was pretty fun. I thought that was interesting. Kind of mix things up a little bit, do something we hadn't really done before, bring some March Madness into the ORWBL. And that just about wraps it up. We covered about everything we wanted to cover. This one ran a little bit longer than I anticipated, but I thought this was a good one. Talked about some good stuff, got some good content. Brett, you got anything you want to add before we take off?
No, I mean, I liked the March Madness. I thought it was fun. I liked talking about the top 5 breakout guys. Excited for next week. Should be another good show.
Yeah, definitely. Potentially could have some land sharks on the show next year, depending on things, or not next year, next week, depending on how things work out. So definitely look out for that. But we should be back on next Thursday. But thanks for joining us.
Thanks for tuning in.
And we'll be signing off.